This Zoom meeting is going to last about an hour. Oops, still more people coming in. With we'll have about an hour's presentation, and after presentation, we'll have question and answers, and we'll get to as many of them as we can. So if you have questions, please put them in the chat so that I can locate them to ask Bonnie about them. And also, I'll just remind you that you can change your view from speaker to gallery. That's on your end, that's on our end. And I'd like to thank Eric Noble for hosting this. We're still getting people in.
Judy, I'll let people in. You can go ahead with the intro.
Okay, I'd like to thank Eric Noble for hosting this meeting. Eric is a folk archivist and historian, and he maintains the diggers.org website, which is very interesting. He also was involved with the Frisco Bay Mussel Group and workshops that happened at the farm. The Frisco Bay Mussel Group was a bioregional activist study group. And the farm is one of the things that Bonnie was involved with that she's going to be talking about tonight. And Eric kindly offered to be our tech support tonight. So thank you very much, Eric. The presentation also will be recorded, and after we get it up, we'll send you a link to the recording in case you've missed any of it, can't stay for the whole thing, or whatever. And it'll be on Planet Drum Foundation's YouTube channel, and also on a living, it'll be on Bonnie's website too, a Living Library website. And when I send that, I'll send a few resources that you might be interested in as well. So, oh, and one other thing is that if you are searching to locate Planet Drum Foundation, make sure you write foundation, because otherwise you may be inundated with music videos. So, Planet Drum Foundation is an ecological educational nonprofit that was founded by visionary Peter Berg to provide an effective grassroots approach to ecology that emphasizes sustainability, community self-reliance, and community self-determination and regional self-reliance. Planet Drum's mission is to promote awareness of sustainable strategies for human inhabitation of the earth based on the bioregions where people live. So just to clarify, Planet Drum and Peter Berg defined a bioregion as taking the word bio, which is life, and region, which is place. They were talking about life places as geographical areas with coherent and interconnected natural characteristics, often defined by a watershed, and the cultural values that human inhabitants develop for living in harmony with these natural systems. It's a place where nature and humans coexist. As Peter said, it refers both to a geographical terrain and a terrain of consciousness. Planet Drum explores the question, Who are we? Where are we? And what are we going to do about it? And it recognizes that natural systems are always the basis for culture and long-term sustainability, and that learning to live with the natural systems rather than exploiting them as resources is essential to our continued existence. And this is not a new idea. First peoples have always lived with respect for their ecosystems. When we use the word Islais tonight, Islais, for the watershed that we're looking at, we are actually recognizing the Ramaytush, Muwekma, Ohlone people, the first peoples who live here, because this is their word for a plant that has cherry-like fruits on it, and it's all through this watershed. Over the years, Planet Drum has produced more than 50 publications and hundreds of workshops and events to help people discover their local watersheds and ecology, organized around community-based projects, and encourage people to plunge into a love affair with their bioregion. So now I would like to introduce Bonnie. Bonnie is our speaker tonight. Bonnie Ora Sherk is a legendary ecological artist, landscape architect, and educator whose works and arts are known and admired worldwide, and especially in San Francisco, where she created monumental and innovative groundbreaking artworks. Her works have been exhibited internationally in museums and galleries, including at the Venice Biennale, and published globally in art books and journals. I'd like to describe to you a couple of her works. In 1970 in San Francisco, she created a series of portable parks, 1 through 3, in which diverse freeway environments were transformed into temporary bucolic parks, replete with cows, palm trees, sod, and other animals. Portable Park 1 brought 3 cows, a dozen palm trees, a carpet of sod, and Bonnie herself to a spur of the James Licht Freeway near Fell Street for 24 hours. This is the part of the freeway that was taken down now. The next 24 hours brought these materials plus additional cows, chickens, picnic tables, and bales of straw to the concrete islands at the Mission Van Ness off-ramp, where people came and ate their lunch, forming a more participatory Portable Park number 2. Then for the next 48 hours, Maiden Lane in downtown San Francisco was closed to traffic and became an even more participatory scene. In addition to the cows and chickens, the artists also borrowed many animals from the San Francisco Zoo, which people loved seeing and experiencing downtown. Portable Parks 1 through 3 are now credited in official literature as being the original parklets. You know parklets, a contemporary popular phenomenon that began in San Francisco even before the pandemic and are now seen around the world. That's one set of art projects that Bonnie did. The next year, when people went to the Lion House at the San Francisco Zoo during the public feeding times for the lions and tigers, they discovered Bonnie Ora Sherk in a cage adjacent to the tigers, eating grilled steak and French bread, while the other animals were eating raw meat. Public Lunch, as this now famous piece was called, was a performance installation that led the artist to begin studying animal behavior and interspecies communications. This work led to the creation and development of the farm. Beginning in 1974, she envisioned and later implemented Crossroads Community, the farm, as its founding director and president. It was an indoor-outdoor space for animals and people, nature and art. It included pioneering urban agriculture and an ecological and multi-arts universe of themed gardens and landscapes. The farm included an indoor space for human-oriented theater performances. For example, the Reinhabitory Theater, which Planet Drum put together, Tumbleweed and Rhodessa Jones's company, dance companies, as well as poetry readings and punk rock music. Besides the indoor space, it provided indoor-outdoor spaces for animals, known as the Raw Egg Animal Theater. Its acronym is TREAT. The farm nonchalantly incorporated a major freeway interchange and large open spaces, a powerful diptych of images and realities. These diverse themed environments were integrated into an innovative award-winning ecology and art educational program she developed. It engaged thousands of children from across San Francisco and the Bay Area. Treat at the Farm, as it was affectionately known. Crossroads Community, the farm, was eventually transformed into a city park known as Potrero del Sol Park. By the way, a revival of some of the aspects of the farm is currently going on as the new farm at the Bay Natives Nursery on Cargo Way. Bonnie left the farm at the end of 1980 and soon began working and developing a living library. Its acronym is A.L.L, which she describes as a planetary genre of feng shuianal art. East marries west, north and south, plus indigenous cultures worldwide, that she is still extremely excited to be creating and developing locally and globally. A living library includes the work she's been accomplishing in the Islais Creek Watershed, which is what she'll be talking to us about tonight. And as she says, there's much more to do. Take it away, Bonnie Ora.
Thank you, Judy and Planet Drum. I'm really very happy to be here with you because I feel that all the values that Peter and others at Planet Drum, yourself included, have been espousing for so many years are ones that I also feel very deeply. So it's no accident that we're here together tonight. It's very lovely and quite beautiful. And so thank you very much for inviting me to work with you. And I have some images that I'm going to share with everyone. I'm going to share my screen now. And just give me a second to make this work. And what I want to say is that the Islais Creek Watershed won't leave me alone. She is definitely in charge. She's in the driver's seat. She's directing traffic. And it's not by design or conscious intention that I've been working with her for over 50 years, but it's the synchronicity of phenomena that brings me here tonight to you and has led me to work with her for all of these many decades. And I want to share with you a few images from earlier times. This is called Sitting Still One from 1970. And I came upon this area where garbage and water had collected because the freeway interchange, then called the Army Street interchange, was being built. And so this construction created this area of water and garbage. And the so-called audience for this piece were the people in the very slow-moving cars that I was facing. So when I saw this environment, this found environment, I immediately went home and put on an evening gown and then called a friend of mine to come and photograph it in a particular way as a proscenium theater. Because at the time I was experimenting with different kinds of performance pieces, where a performance could be, what a performance could be, and who an audience could be. So I came upon this and sat in this place for about an hour. What I didn't know is that I was facing my future. I was facing what would become the farm. You see that building in the distance. This 4 years later, Fred Meyer of California. I was facing the northern frame of the Islais Creek Watershed, which goes down Cesar Chavez now, then called Army. And I was facing the construction of this freeway interchange that I'm now proposing, as you'll see, to become the northern gateway Islais Creek Watershed Community Park. In 1974, I had an epiphany and a vision of Crossroads Community, the farm, in its full flower. And this is a before and after picture of what the land looked like. In 1974, this open space had a building on it, which was the old Borden's Dairy building, which was razed, bought by Knutson Corporation. And adjacent to it was about an acre open space, which had been a tannery owned by a man named Monroe Bloom. And then there was a cluster of buildings alongside the freeway interchange and a state right-of-way. This drawing that I made shows better configuration of the site. And alongside the state right-of-way was the freeway interchange, and in the center of the freeway interchange was land managed by Department of Public Works. And so when I saw this, I realized that this was an opportunity to connect all these land fragments and create a contiguous whole of these places, and also create a place where people from these different communities in the Mission, Vernal, Potrero Hill, and Bayview communities could come together with each other and plants and animals where the freeway had severed them. So I was very excited about this and envisioned all of these opportunities. This is the first drawing that I made, the original drawing of the farm, which I made in 1974, which showed all of these opportunities of the land becoming of an urban agriculture place, and all of these buildings involving the arts and culture and agriculture and becoming a community learning place. So I named it Crossroads Community because it was literally in the crossroads of these freeway interchanges, but also metaphorically in the crossroads of where we want to be, where we could be as a city. This is an east elevation. If you go by this land now, which is now called Potrero del Sol Park, you'll see all these hills. So I said, well, it doesn't have to be flat. Why don't we use this concrete as an armature and create hillsides? And so that's what happened. And this model, looking south, shows the cluster of buildings, and also these blue areas are water. There's a lot of water here. If you drive through the freeway interchange today, now called the Chavez and 101 interchange, it's always wet. There's a lot of water there. Even on the hottest day of the summer, the driest day, there's always water that's seeping out because there's water here. Now, in 1974, 75, I said to the city, we can create ponds and windmills that use the natural water. But at that time, ecology was not a word that people knew or used. And this, so the city put in a fake pond in 1980, but it used Hetchetchee water, which was really a mistake. And then it became a skateboard rink, which is what it is today, an area for skateboarders. But the point is that there's still a lot of water in this place. So this is one of the scenes from 1976 that shows two boys mowing the lawn. And this is the first garden on state land, by the way, Caltrans operated land. And this was the beginning of that first garden, and the corn growing, and the children working in the gardens, thousands of them over many years. And we had a regular relationship with the Buena Vista School, where the children would come as part of their school day, and they loved it so much they would come back after school and on weekends and bring their friends and family. But the farm was also a very popular place for about 75 to 100 schools in San Francisco and the Bay Area. This was a 9-foot-tall, two-headed, four-armed, three-legged scarecrow that the children made. And this is a view into the raw egg animal theater called Treat. And the children loved being here. I remember sitting them on that concrete plaza in 1974, 1975, having them close their eyes and envision what could be in the park. Here's a site plan of the land before the farm was there, before the park was there. And then they would come back to the Raw Egg Animal Theater and they would do drawings and make collages of their ideas, and some of them are on the wall. Here's a beautiful watercolor of a rabbit and a chicken. And here are the pullets on TV. And this is the buck meeting the cat for the first time in the Raw Egg Animal Theater. This was not a place for raising animals to eat for food. This was a place to learn about the animals' native intelligences. And we learned about the native intelligences of different species. It's phenomenal to learn. This is a view from the farmhouse kitchen, looking at what I used to think of as the farm of the future at the freeway interchange, which I thought looked rather Egyptian. And this was a garden that we put in the middle of the freeway interchange. This is on DPW land. And this is a brass quintet from the San Francisco Symphony that played in humor of the Freeway Gardens and Cityscape exhibition that showcased the farm. And this was a huge party. I also bought in Mexico several Four Seasons lacy white benches and put them, 3 of them, in the freeway interchange in the center of the freeway, and also a couple of them in the garden on state land. So this is the site in the 70s of that freeway interchange. Where we are today, the opportunity is to use the Islais Creek Watershed as a natural framing device, which it is, and to create a living library linked community, culture, ecology, technology, environments, places, using the transportation corridors, the freeway interchanges, public right-of-ways, public housing, linking the public housing, parks, schools, streets, and other open spaces. And this work would do many things in addition to creating beautiful places for human beings and other species. It would also help with flood mitigation and climate change, be a triple bottom line or quadruple bottom line opportunity. So we're going to be looking at these Islais Creek Watershed interconnected communities and gateways to the watershed. This is an old map that shows the 8 watersheds in San Francisco. The largest is the Islais Creek Watershed. The pink color is all the fill that was added to expand the land. This watershed is the largest in San Francisco that integrates Noe Valley, Mission, Vernal Heights, Potrero Hill, Bayview, Portola, Crocker Amazon, Excelsior, OMI, Sunnyside, and Glen Park. It's quite a place. Here's a close-up of that old map. A lot of people, this area on the right in the pink is the Islais Channel, which a lot of people think of as the watershed, but it's not. It's just the outflow. For those of you who may not know, a watershed is really about the way the land is formed and the way the water drains. In this case, it drains toward the bay, but it has several forks. The northern fork actually includes the Precita Creek. And at the farm, which was located right here, the Precita Creek, the Islais Creek, and the Serpentine Creek coming down from Potrero Hill all converged underneath the farm, which is why there's so much water there. And Glen Park, which is here, has an area that's daylighted of the creek. But the CAYUGA Valley has a ton of water and a lot of flooding. And the opportunity is to really use the water on site productively, not put it in a big pipe and have it float away to the bay. We want to use it productively. Now, this map is really important because it shows a lot of what we're going to be talking about. Right here at the north of this watershed is where the farm was. Here's the Islais Channel that I mentioned. So this is Noe Valley, Mission, Vernal Heights, both sides, Potrero Hill, Bayview, Portola, Crocker Amazon, Excelsior, OMI, Sunnyside, and Glen Park. The red dots are the BART stations. Balboa BART, Glen Park BART, and 24th Street BART. They're all part of the watershed. These two blue circles is where I'm proposing to create the northern and southern gateways community parks. As you can see, they are the gateway to the watershed, literally and figuratively. And then there's another blue circle, which is at the end of Cayuga Avenue, and also at the confluence of where the creek comes down from Glen Park, and meets with the Cayuga Valley Creek. And there's a tremendous amount of flooding there. There's also a large right-of-way on Caltrans property. And what I'm proposing is to create the Islais Creek Watershed Confluence Community Park. In other words, let's use the land, the open spaces more productively. Let's use the water in situ so that we don't put it in pipes and send it away and treat it expensively and then put it in the bay where we have an issue of sea level rise, among other issues. Now, getting back to this map, you see a purple L-shaped piece of land. This is the existing OMI Excelsior Living Library and Think Park that's been underway in existence for since the mid-1990s. And in the middle here, you see another purple shape, which is the prototype Islais Creek Watershed Living Library and Think Park Nature Walk. And we're going to look at that, as well as some other opportunities. This is a map that shows the freeway interchange areas, the Alamany 101 in the south, the Chavez and 101 in the north, as they looked in 1896, before there were any freeways. And this is a map that shows what they look like more today, which is very impacted. And this area has been built up on, and the freeway has, the watershed has been hidden, except for this Islais Channel and a portion of it that is in Glen Park that's been daylighted. However, the PUC, the Public Utilities Commission, and the early people who manhandled San Francisco after the earthquake filled in this creek. This is a picture of the Islais Creek in earlier moments. And this is when they were looking at filling it in. This is the creek bed, the channel bed. And after the earthquake, it was filled with a lot of the rubble. And I call this HH, human hubris. People thought they could create more land by just filling it in and paving it over, more buildable land, more real estate. However, they didn't really understand ecological systems. And the PUC, which has a multi system for water collection, it mixes the sewage and the fresh water together, thought that they could put everything in a pipe, in a culvert, and take it away to the bay, clean it first at the station towards near the bay, and then send it out to the bay. But the truth is that the watershed is much more powerful. The creek system is much more powerful and bold than the human beings who are trying to control it. And actually, all of the water is not in the culverts. So there's a lot of groundwater that has escaped that's usable. This is another picture of this area, this beautiful landscape before it was heavily built upon. And this image shows the Presida Park and the houses, the temporary housing that was that people lived in after the earthquake in Presida Park. And this image is the train that went along San Jose Avenue, and I think that's Bernal Heights in the background. Might even be Holly Park, actually. Now, why do we do this? What I'm proposing, what's the value? Well, the Watershed Nature Walk and gateways to the watershed offer multi-benefits. The Public Utilities Commission the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission likes to think of itself as being a triple bottom line agency. So, social, cultural, and environmental justice benefits. First of all, we can engage and involve all sectors of the community from the watershed. We can collaborate with multiple city, state, and federal agencies in a robust way, which is not really yet happening. We can make areas safe and accessible where the freeway has severed communities. We can create multiple interactive opportunities for people, including having integrated school and community education. And we can provide many opportunities for green skills job training for maintenance and stewardship. And we can also create a place of sense and wonder for all of us. We can create interest at the ground level and from the freeway as we drive by. And we can showcase the local resources through multifunctional or multifunctional sculptural green power digital gateways, which I'll discuss a little bit more. And what are the ecological benefits of such a program? Well, we can mitigate flooding along the freeway corridors where there is a lot, and in the interchanges and in the neighborhoods, and we can reduce polluted runoff into the bay, which is not great for the bay. And that, of course, is also going to help with sea level rise. We can combat climate change through ponding and bioswales and creek daylighting. And we can be creating resilient, native, drought-tolerant, and riparian landscapes that are incorporating blue-green infrastructure or low-impact design, LID, infrastructure to link communities using the ground and stormwater on site productively. And of course, we can be reattracting native wildlife to these areas. And we can certainly counteract the various heat island effects from all of the concrete. So all of these are very practical considerations. And to do this work, there are multiple funding opportunities available for outreach, planning, design, implementation, ongoing community programs, and maintenance from city, state, federal, and private sources. So there's plenty of money, but we have to work as a team. Functional art, this is what the word looks like. It took me a year to figure out how to spell it. And I designed this word and named it because I was interested in describing the work that I was doing, which is really a planetary genre, marrying the so-called functionalism of the West with Eastern, Northern, and Southern alignment, spiritualism, and feng shui opportunities, as well as looking and involving the various styles and methodologies of indigenous cultures worldwide. So functional art is a planetary genre of art that I work on. The farm is a good example of that. And also a living library, which you're going to see, is a very good example of that. And it's my belief that art is the most powerful methodology available to us as human critters to make positive change, especially when art incorporates nature as a model. So an opportunity and strategy for transforming and addressing multiple systemic issues simultaneously is a living library, which is both cultivating the human and the ecological garden. And a living library links local resources, human, ecological, economic, historic, technological, and aesthetic, seen through the lens of time, past, present, and future. The metaphor of a living library is that everyone and everything on Earth and in space is part of a living library of diversity. People, birds, trees, air, water, and all the things that we create, such as parks and gardens and schools and curricula and artworks and networks and communities. It's a way to understand that culture and technology is part of nature. It's all nature. That's not to say that everything is the same, but it's just to understand this very basic idea that we are part of nature and what we create is part of nature, even though some of the choices we make are not very good ones. And a living library is also a life frame. And a life frame literally frames life so we can see it and experience it more profoundly. And a living library and a life frame are also think parks, which are meant to make us think, feel, and be more empathetic to ourselves, to each other, and to all species. So these are really the values that a living library is working with. And happily enough, as Judy mentioned, the initials spell all, which is really what it's about. It's a framework for linked systems, biological, cultural, and technological. Everything is interconnected. And this drawing collage that I made in 1990 shows the tree of life, the tree of knowledge with the roots as the local resources. And when we're involved in developing a living library, which is also a life frame, through hands-on processes of research, planning, design, implementation, use, maintenance, management, and communications, all subjects come to life. And all sectors of the community can be involved in developing a living library and its various processes, including individuals and students and families, to state and city and federal and international agencies and philanthropies and businesses. So it's a vehicle, it's a life frame that engages people in various ways, various kinds of involvement. And as mentioned, all subjects come to life through hands-on involvement. And a goal of Life Frames Inc., which is a nonprofit that I formed in 1992, which is the sponsor of a living library and branch living libraries locally and globally, is to develop them in different parts of the world. And each integrates the local resources that I mentioned: human, ecological, economic, historic, technological, and aesthetic. So when we look at these assets through the lens of time, past, present, and future, no matter where we are, there's incredible richness. We could be in the poorest of poor places. We could be in a rural community. We could be in an urban place of poverty. There's incredible richness if we look at these assets in a different way. We perceive them, and we look at them creatively, we'll find incredible resources to work with and incorporate in developing our branch living library and think park. And a goal is to interconnect these branches through green power digital gateways, which showcase the local resources in different ways. So, for example, this drawing shows true locales. This is somewhere Asia on the left, in Asia. So this procession on the left is showing up in this large display in the trees. This performance, this performance on the upper right is showing up in this video parasol on the left. This little girl is either inputting or accessing from her multimedia archives of a living library in this video computer hedgerow. These people are gardening. Whoops, I did it again. These people are gardening, and it's showing up here in this display in the tree. So the opportunity is to use the communications technologies in the landscape. By the way, one of the earliest forms of technology, which I don't know that I need to remind you, was agriculture. But anyway, here's a Green Power Digital Gateway collage drawing, sketch number 8, which is powered by wind and sun, of course. And it's a multifunctional opportunity. It can bring water forth as needed from the ground. It can showcase the local multimedia archives of transformation or resources in the communities. That is also a program that maybe the youth and the adults have created. And it allows for live interactive broadcast between branches, between sites, locally and globally. So it has a lot of value in usage. And the goal is to develop, as I mentioned, these branches in different parts of the world and interconnect them, creating a meta network of places and opportunities so we can begin to share the cultures and ecologies of different places and understand the commonalities and diversities from around the world. Here I am in China presenting this. I presented it 3 times in China, twice in Beijing and in Guangzhou. And this was a conference on International Forum on Education for Sustainable Development that was sponsored by the People's Republic of China, UNESCO, and the Beijing Academy of Educational Sciences. And I was invited there, and I loved being there, I will say that, several times. So now we're going to go to the OMI Excelsior Living Library and Think Park. And there's that L-shaped piece of land. You may recall you saw it in purple on that map of the watershed. L is for life, love, learning, life frame, living library, local community, lots of fun and magic. And there are 4 schools on the San Francisco Unified School District property: Balboa High School, Jamestown Middle School, San Miguel Early Education School, and Leadership High School. And creating a master plan with the community is a learning program for the community. And everybody gets involved, as you'll see, including the young people. And this is a map that we found during that process of planning before design could happen. Just understanding the local resources, the linked local resources, the A.L.L, and all this blue is water. And this shows a map from 1913-15. If you look very closely, it says vegetable gardens, and these are all nurseries. So before the schools were there, agriculture was on the site. Very interesting. And here's the Sanborn map from 1907. And again, if you look very closely, which I did, it says Islais Creek. And this is Lake Geneva, near Geneva Avenue. So when I found this map, I realized that I'd been working in the same watershed for all of these decades, not by design, because this is the same watershed that the farm was in, that I worked on 20 years earlier, more than 20 years earlier. Here I was decades later in the same watershed. As I said, she won't leave me alone. She's much more powerful than any of us, and she knows what she needs, and she's directing us to do it. When I first got to the middle school, typical factory model school in the mid-1990s, it was probably one of the most depressing places I'd ever been. Very sterile, acres of asphalt and concrete. Looked like a prison yard, really gross. And this is where we're supposed to be educating our young people. It doesn't look like a place of learning to me. It looks depressing and horrible, and it was. I went here and I thought, I'm never coming back. Wrong. Next thing I know, the principal of the middle school said, Bonnie, we've heard about a living library. Would you create one here? I said, sure. We had no money. We had nothing except this opportunity. So with this planning process, you see the young people, the students from the different schools involved, and the teachers and the parents. These people were from the planning, from the water department. And this is my student steering committee. And they learned about the water. In fact, they had a metal detector, and they went around and found all the old wells from in the CAYUGA Valley, where there's a lot of flooding. There was a lot of flooding then, and there still is a lot of flooding. So this is the first iteration of the master plan that I developed with the community. And you see how those acres of gray asphalt and concrete become green and very interesting, the themed learning zones. And this next slide shows the San Miguel Early Education School. And many of these features are in place, not all of them. The upper garden, the orchard, the Redwood Reading Circle. There's a well that's been drilled that I drilled with the PUC in 2005. And a lot of California natives around the periphery on the street, Oneida Street, and now we're doing Seneca Avenue over here, and in this area where leadership is now. And these are the interrelated learning zones under the different features. And this is a site plan that I made for the rear end of Denman. This was just a very small area of that acres of asphalt and concrete. But these are California native learning zones. And this is a current project that's underway now. This is Seneca Avenue between CAYUGA. We're also doing San Jose Avenue. I'll show you what that looks like. And in fact, this is the a site plan that I made that shows the San Jose portion. And here you can see this blue around Balboa High School. I'm actually proposing to daylight the creek that's been flooding Balboa High School cafeteria for decades. There's enough land around the ball field. We can't touch the ball field, that's sacred. But there's enough land to actually bring the water forth. And this area, which is at Seneca and CAYUGA, is loaded with water. Nick Berth, who I work with, who's a hydrologist from the PUC, has a video of the water that is going at high speeds all the time. So there are a lot of opportunities that will mitigate flooding. These, by the way, are all rain gardens that we're putting in along the street to capture the water. And this is another area that's still to be developed on the Seneca portion of the rain gardens. Now, one of the things that we do with a living library is we integrate hands-on all STEAM plus literacy. That's science, technology, engineering, art, and math, plus literacy for pre-K through 12 students integrated into these learning zones and landscapes. And also we have the wonderful program, All Green Futures, Green Skills Job Training Program for youth. We had a middle school cohort, and now we have high school and TAY, which is transitional aged youth, 18 to 24 18-year-olds. So high school to age 24 youth who get paid for their involvement in helping to maintain and develop these learning zones. It's quite a fabulous program. So this is Seneca Avenue before. You can see lots of concrete, lots of heat islands, really pretty grim. And these are the Leadership High School students who were hard at work. They did a tremendous amount of work. And these are actually some of the middle school students also doing a lot of work, planting. And this is the way it looks today after the beautiful work. And there's still more that we're doing here, but it's quite gorgeous. And this concrete pathway is recycled from the sidewalk, of course. These are all California natives. So these are obviously holes being dug by the students. And these are twin sisters. Boy, they were magnificent workers. Boy, they just loved it. And you can see their gusto. They were terrific workers. And you see how it's fabulous. So these are all California natives. And I chose a very colorful palette. So it's quite a gorgeous place. And this is measuring. This is the corner of San Jose and Seneca. And then this is digging up the San Jose portion, a portion of that portion. A lot of deep, and then this is the way it looks today. Again, these are all California natives planted by the youth. This is the rear yard of Denman Middle School before, when it looked like a prison yard. It's pretty bleak. And it's, not too much going on there. But then we started with concrete removal and the planting and the bringing in of soil. This is the concrete that was underneath the asphalt that's recycled into pathways. And this is the redwood circle that's being planted by the students at the school. And here they are with the understory after the trees are planted. And this is with the tree stumps. So it's a really wonderful outdoor classroom. And it's also used for fun. And this is what it looks like with all the California natives. It's no longer a prison yard, but really a place of life and vitality. Now, this is the lower garden between Denman and San Miguel. These are third graders from San Miguel. This is from probably 1998. And this next slide is this same place a little bit later. See how beautiful it is? And that's work of the children. The mural, the mosaic tile mural was made by the youth, and all the planting. And this Anna's hummingbird, the California native hummingbird, was made by a sixth grader from Denman Middle School. This mural shows the Islais Creek, as well as to the right of it, you can't see it in this slide, the agriculture that was on the land. So the murals are about the place. And this is actually a dragon that shows the chi of the garden. Here's the dragon earlier time. And it becomes a beautiful outdoor classroom. And there's a wonderful harvest. Do you think they're having fun? I think so. This boy especially looks very happy. And here's the corn. And worms, we grow worms. And kids make compost. They learn how to make soil. And they sift the soil, they sift the compost. They love to do that. And they get the worms and they take out the big thing. And here's a beautiful young lady watering the gardens. And these artworks, the fence was filled with these giant steel artworks that were blown up, drawings from the San Miguel students. And this is one of the streets before. This is Oneida Street. With a class adding compost, and there's a math class measuring the street. And this is a before and during picture. And this is a during picture. And by the way, when the students planted these trees in 1999, Rosemary Camber, who was the chairwoman of the Muwekma Ohlone Indian tribe, came and blessed these trees. And this picture is 2005. So this becomes beautiful California Native Learning Zone, and it's no longer depressing. As you can see, it's quite gorgeous and lively and happy. And these are students taking away the non-native ice plants behind San Miguel and replacing them with natives. And here are some of the All Green Futures in their paid internships after school, helping to maintain this hillside. And here are students during the school day who were painting artworks that they made, which were the labels for the trees that they planted. And they're just gorgeous. Cut out wooden polychrome labels. Name and common names. And this is some of the early work at San Miguel transforming the asphalt and concrete. These are the contractors. Some of them are quite young but very capable. And this is developing the orchard. Oh, this little girl is doing this gorgeous drawing with a glazed pencil on a bisque tile, which then gets glazed and made into the centerpiece for an ADA mosaic tile paper. And hundreds of them were made. Here's the agriculture part of the mural in the lower garden. Here they are, beautiful. And they were all installed in an ADA pathway. And so little by little, this area, which was formerly completely 100% asphalt and concrete, is transformed and no longer very depressing. Multifunctional. Here's some little cherubs gardening in the upper garden. And there you can see the agriculture part of the mural on the side wall of the Denman auditorium. Oh, and these children are in the lower garden, and they're just beautiful, and they're doing observational drawings. They're looking at the plants and they're drawing. We do a lot of observational drawing. We need to learn how to see, because when we learn how to see, we can understand the functionality of plants and other species. Oh, this is the beginning of the Redwood Reading Circle at San Miguel. This is DPW helping us. Here it was recently planted, and the tree stumps added. Oh, and here it is behind a little grown up, and this is the farm learning zone. There are different learning zones, and here's another picture, a few pictures. The kids love it. They have a lot of fun, as you can see. And this is in the lower garden. This is a wonderful classroom area, and the children take notes for their all-nature portfolios. And then they also use microscopes and macroscopes, and they see all kinds of wonderful things. They make salads. They love to do that. That's their favorite thing, is to create food. Who doesn't like that? They collect the food, they harvest it, they wash it, they prepare it, and then they eat it. Oh, and this little girl is doing a beautiful drawing of a lavatera, and there it is. And she's learning about zoology and different botanical forms, and she's learning about the different plant parts. And this goes into her all-nature portfolio. Now, meanwhile, downstream in the Cayuga Valley, where there's great flooding, at the end of Cayuga is a street that goes under Balboa High School, where there is a lot of flooding in the cafeteria and has been for years. But further east, there's tremendous flooding. And what I'm proposing there for this area is the Islais Creek Watershed Confluence Community Park that would use the adjacent Caltrans property, which is quite large, and link it up to the Glen Park BART station. And this is the area. It's under this section of the freeway that crosses Mission Street. And it's at the confluence of these creeks. And that's why there's a lot of flooding, no surprise there. But that's why there's flooding there. And these houses are really inundated with sewage. It's not, but it can be transformed. And it may be that a couple of these houses need to be bought by the city through eminent domain, which they are talking about doing. The PUC is discussing it. But in order to make this work, we have to work with Caltrans in a very proactive, positive way. And this is very doable. This is very doable. So this is an opportunity. And this is underneath that freeway. And you see there's quite a lot of land there to work with. Now, further downstream is where I developed the prototype living library nature walk that links multiple schools, parks, public housing, and streets leading to the currently hidden Islais Creek at the south side of St. Mary's Park and Alamany Boulevard and Alamany Dwellings and Alamany Farm. Anyway, the master planning process is a learning program for the community that involves the students and the adults. This woman lived across the street at Holly Courts Public Housing. This gentleman was from the Bernal Heights Neighborhood Center, and this lovely woman, Georgia Willette, was from Alamany Dwellings at the south side of St. Mary's Park and Alamany Boulevard, where there's a tremendous amount of flooding because the creek goes right under there. No surprise here. And this is a lovely little girl from Juniper Sarah Early Education School, and this is someone with a rose on her head, and that would be me. And this is a student who was documenting all of the proceedings for the multimedia digital archives of various processes. And these are other people who participated. So this learning program went on for a while. You see the students become the leaders and they can tell us what's going on. They learn about their community. What we came up with was this idea to create this prototype nature walk that would link two schools, the Juniper Sarah Early Education School, the Juniper Sarah Elementary School, Holly Park, St. Mary's Park, open up College Hill Reservoir, which has an enormous amount of land on the western side of it, open space, and all of these link all of these streets. And here's Alamany Dwellings, and here's Holly Court Public Dwellings, public housing. So that's the idea of the nature walk, is you link the community assets through developing resilient landscapes and interpretive signage. And Judy is going to take a group of people who have signed up, who are interested on this nature walk on Saturday, May 8th at noon. They're going to be meeting right here on Appleton Street in front of the Juniper Sarah Early Education School. This is College Hill Reservoir, Holly Park, St. Mary's Park. This is some of the species that I used in these resilient landscapes, very colorful. Using California natives do not have to be dull and brown. There's lots of color and fabulousness to use. So here are the children at the early education school creating the garden after school, which they did for many years and still do. And here they are in the different environments. And here they are on Appleton Street. This is before and during. And after, these are all Quercus agrifolia coastal oaks that are planted here with understory plants. And here's this lovely group of planters with some adults from Salesforce who helped us. And these are children from the elementary school who are planting alongside their school. A lot of work was done, and then the school went under construction. Some of it has to be redone, but it was quite fabulous. And as you can see, these children are very capable. These are K-5 students, very, very capable. And here's another group of these same students from the elementary school across the street in Holly Park, planting California natives in their park. And here's the entryway. that they were planting. And here's the public housing with the Quercus agrifolia, the coast live oaks that are planted in the grass here. And this is a young boy, actually he's an adolescent. He started across the street. He lives here at Holly Courts House, but he was a student of mine at the Juniper Early Education School years before. And he was very loved planting. And here he is planting these trees in his home, in the public housing. And this is the entrance to Holly Park, which then you can see the students planting and transforming beautifully. And this is the before picture of a scene from St. Mary's Park. And this is during and after. Again, very colorful California natives. Ceanothus rayharton, which is a ceanothus in the tree form. And this is Cerces occidentalis, which is the western redbud. And this is St. Mary's Park in the lower next to Alamany behind us. And you see families working together planting oak trees and fremonodendrons. And this is later, same place. And this is a hillside next to the recreation center that got transformed over time. There are some of the planters, but many, many people. And even more robustly planted today. It's just filled with color and natives. And maybe Judy will go look at that on the nature walk on Saturday. And this is planting, this is further down by Alamany Farm. This is another redwood circle that I put in the lower part of St. Mary's Park, adjacent to Alamany Farm. And here it is, a little more grown up, and these are a group of students from Paraguay that came to visit and were sitting in the redwood circle after they did some volunteer work. And we were talking about what they were doing and what was going on. They were fabulous. And this is what it looked like. This is the riparian signage that gets repeated throughout the watershed. And these boulders look like they've been here for 200 years, but they were actually placed by me as part of this project, probably in 2014. Oh, and this is the A.L.L to be. This is the area above Alamany Farm. And here is a group of students. This is newly planted Quercus agrifolia. And these students are listening and looking at Phil Ginsberg, the head of the Park Rec Department, who's giving a speech about the nature walk. And here's the A.L.L as it's growing up. And this is the drought-tolerant tree signage, which is free rhododendron flower shape. And here's all of the signs. The understory is a Lavatera shape, and the monarch butterfly is the wildlife sign. And here's the riparian signage, the Prunus ilicifolia, which is the Islais cherry that Judy mentioned. This is the Prunus ilicifolia leaf, the Islais cherry leaf, which grew very well abundantly along the Islais Creek, so named by the Wekmaloni Indians. And this is a California rose understory plant. And again, here's the monarch butterfly wildlife sign. So again, these signage are being repeated throughout the watershed so that people begin to understand that there actually is such a place called the watershed. And here we are going further downstream, further east, and the proposed Islais Creek Watershed Southern Gateway Community Park in the Alamany 101 interchange, where you see there's a large amount of land, open space, huge amounts of land, terrific opportunity. Also a lot of flooding and rain events, major flooding. Roads are closed. This is under the freeway, the 101 freeway. This is looking north on 101 under the rain. And you see the roads closed. So there's a lot of problems with flooding, but we can be mitigating this flooding if we're looking at the whole watershed, not just the area that's along the water's edge in the bay, but we're starting upstream, and we're looking midstream, and we're looking downstream. All these areas need to be worked on. And here's the proposed multi-benefit Northern Gateway Community Park in Islais Creek Watershed. And this is currently a very derelict place. This is where we had gardens and the brass quintet from the San Francisco Symphony that I showed you earlier in the slides. This is today. This is the way it looks today. It's really horrible. It doesn't have to be this way, and we need to change it, and we can change it, but we need to work together to make this happen. And this is the walkway through the interchange. So what I've shown you is some history, some historical images, and a few suggestions for flood mitigation in the watershed. And there are many more opportunities. And the new gold is old. It's fresh water. And this is a banner tow over Angel Island, which suggests what's next, which is probably the Q&A. The end of my presentation.
Thank you so much, Bonnie. That was really just an enormous amount of information, and the transformations are beautiful. It's wonderful to see the kids working, and it's amazing that you were able to work with all the city bureaucracy to get all that work done with the help from the city as well. I congratulate you on that. I'm really looking forward to going on Saturday on a walk around Holly Park Circle and the walks up there. So we have quite a few signups, but I do have a few more spaces. So if anybody else wants to join us, they're welcome to email me at Planet Drum. It's mail@planetdrum.org, and let me know that you want to go on the walk with us. It'll probably be about an hour and a half, maybe a little longer. We don't actually have any questions right now.
Okay.
So I don't know if anyone else wants to have, there are no questions in the chat. If anyone has any questions. I don't think this doesn't have a raise your hand, but I would say unmute yourself and ask a question if you have any.
I see someone had difficulty hearing. Has the presentation begun? That's at 7:31. I don't know if Paloma heard anything, but have people been hearing?
I lost the pictures, but I found them again. It was kind of complicated.
Yeah, Jim?
Pictures disappeared, but I could see you all in the gallery. But then I found the pictures again, but I couldn't get you together. Picture and gallery. I just couldn't do it, but it's okay.
Well,
It's been recorded. So
yes, it has been recorded. And remember, I am going to send the link to everyone.
Oh, good.
And also, I wanted to mention that at the channel that Bonnie hasn't worked there, but the channel where the mouth of the river goes into the bay, there are several groups that have been working there. The Kayaks Unlimited has been doing a lot of maintenance and cleanup and kayaking there. And also the Islais Creek Dragon Boat Training Center is there. And I'll send the links to those. And also SPUR has done a summary report called Imaging Islais Creek. And it's quite interesting to look at. So I'll send the links to all those things as well as some surprises. So
Judy, I'd like to say something about that report that SPUR put out. Can I do that?
Yes, but Jim had raised his hand. Did you want to ask a question? I wanted to take some questions if there were any. Did you have a question, Jim? Jim and Miriam?
Paloma has her hand raised as well.
You, okay. Well, Jim, you have to unmute your microphone. Yeah. Well, let's go to Paloma. You have to unmute. Eric, can you unmute him?
What I did was I clicked the button that says ask to unmute. And so there should be a pop-up message that comes up on your screen, and you click that.
Got it. Okay.
And that's true for everybody.
Hi, Eric. Can I say anything? It's Jane. Oh my God.
Wait, let's hear from Jim first because he had a question.
My question is that Islais cherry-like fruit an edible fruit?
Yes,
Yes, it is.
it's got a very large pit. The
Thank
pit is proportionally much larger than the fruit. I mean, it's a large pit in a small fruit, but it's edible. And I plant a lot of them. They tend to be kind of bushy. You can get them to be in a tree form, but they're small trees, but kind of bushy.
Thank
So
you.
I like to plant them in the watershed, along with other things, of course.
I have to look for some of those.
Yeah, Prunus elliptifolia.
Their
It's called a holly leaf cherry also.
Their leaves look like holly leaves. They're prickly on the outside. And Paloma, you had a question?
I did. Thank you. A question and also a request. My question is, Bonnie, it's just so inspiring to see your work over the years and so many layers that it has to it. And I was wondering, Carl and I, Carl Anthony, who's on the video tonight, work with this developing environmental literacy in the schools. And I wanted to ask a question about, you are such a genius. I'm wondering if you had unlimited resources, what would you like to see happen regarding environmental literacy in the schools in California and beyond? Like, what are the next steps? How can we support this work? And my request is, in addition to my question, is there a way to unmute Carl, who's blind, so that he could respond and ask anything that he might have on his mind? Because I can see that he's been very attentive here.
Yeah, I had actually requested, I sent Eric a few emails to unmute Carl, but he didn't see him evidently.
There's no way for me to the host to unmute people. The only thing I could do is ask to unmute, and that puts a pop-up on the window, and if you click that, that will then unmute you. But
It's just
It's
Carl is blind, so he can't see that pop-up. Carl, if you hear us right now, why don't you ask Khalil if he's there to come and unmute you so you can ask a question? We can't unmute you from this side, Carl. And it's great that you've been here, and I look forward to sharing this with you in the future. Yes, Bonnie, if you want to answer part of that question, wherever it takes.
Well, I think I have lots of ideas of how to bring environmental literacy to schools throughout California. And one of them is to develop branch living library and think parks, each of which would be place-based, and that immediately gets kids involved in their local community and understanding it. It's like a no-brainer. And that's why A.L.L is so powerful, because it's a way to engage the local community, not just the kids, their parents, the teachers, the neighbors, whomever, in understanding their local place and watershed or whatever's there. And each part of California is unique. I would love to have these branches all over the state. That's a goal of Life Frames Inc. That's our porpoise. One of our porpoisei is to develop branches locally and globally, and then interconnect them through the green power digital gateways. So then these kids in LA and San Diego can talk to the kids in Mendocino or Fort Bragg or Mount Shasta or Weed, or San Francisco or any other place in between. And each of these places is unique because, as we know, California is long and tall and has lots of diversity of places as well as people. So that would be a very fun thing to do. So that's doable if we can get the resources. That's off the top of my head.
Great. And there's a project called Seed and Spark. Have you heard of this?
Well, Spark is the, isn't that the one with the murals?
Seed and Spark, this is a different Seed and Spark. It's a new book that's out and creating a learning expedition. I want to recommend you as one of their guest speakers at the Seed and Spark. So I'm going to send you their book in PDF form. And when you hear from them, you'll go out. Okay.
Paloma,
Carl?
Paloma, can I just, would you send me your email and phone number? Because I don't have your email anymore. It never worked.
Put it in the chat right now. Does that work for you?
Do you have my email? I'm going to write my email in here so that people can contact me.
Okay, great.
If they want to.
You're on Carl's list, but I'm not sure that you're on mine. I've put my email and my cell phone there, and I'm going to also put our team email of our project. We have all of our team wanted to be here tonight, but they're on the East Coast and they're early birds. So it was very
recorded. It's being recorded so they can watch it else in another point in time. I know a lot of people, I don't know why, but 10:30 at night doesn't seem late to me, but whatever.
That's because you're amazing. You're phenomenal and you burn it at both ends all your life.
Well, that's good too, but anyway, but we won't talk about that.
You're a bi-coastal bunny. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Paloma. That's
Honored to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think Jane wanted to do some. Jane, are you still there?
You know, Judy, I am, and I'm just amazed at how wonderful this conversation is. I have no questions. I have lots of memories. I kind of want to thank Bonnie for my opportunity to, at the farm, do a solstice gathering one year. I think it was 1980. So yeah, I'm just chuckling and so happy that she has continued to, you know, bring, which I was not aware of, just kept moving forward with all that great stuff.
It's all a public secret, Jane. This work has been a public secret. Nobody knows about it because I've been busy doing it, not marketing it very well.
Well, lovely to see you, Bonnie. You know, I don't know if you remember, but it was like Samurai Bob. It was those times. Vicki was doing the daycare down in the bottom and of the farm, and it was just magnificent. We dug a lot of nasty fennel out of that place, I remember. Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I left at the end of 1980. So your solstice, was it the summer solstice or the?
It was a winter solstice, and it must have been about 81.
Well, I was in New York then. Sorry, I was envisioning A.L.L. at the time. Sorry, I was.
Okay, no.
I was.
Sorry. Hi, we are. So many decades later. Yeah. Well done. Well done.
Thanks so much.
Keep on. Carry on. Good.
Yeah, I am. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Does anyone else have any questions?
I was thinking of your performative work. Are you doing that these days?
Every day, honey. It's all performative.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot to mention, because this wasn't so much about talking about that work, but with the Sitting Still one, by the way, I did a whole series of performances. I took that idea of the seated human figure and took it to I took another chair, not that waterlogged, yucky, wet one, which was pretty yucky. I was remembering it today.
Yeah, that picture, yeah.
Well, getting into it was, I just had to kind of steel myself.
Exactly. Oh,
it was pretty gross. But anyway, the point is, I had another chair that I took, with me that I could carry. It was an oak, interestingly enough, little armchair with a nice seat cover that I had reupholstered. And I took it to different places, including the Golden Gate Bridge, California Montgomery Street, 20th and Mission, Church and Market, Bank of America Plaza, and various indoor, outdoor cages at the San Francisco Zoo.
Yeah.
I got to the zoo.
Mm.
And then I did the public lunch as the culmination of that work. And
Interesting.
started studying the animal behavior and communication. So it was everything I've ever done has led to the next thing. But anyway, during that period of the early 70s, I was exploring, as I mentioned briefly, the nature of what a performance could be, where a performance could be, who an audience could be. So I really did a lot of exploration of found and created environments of performance. But at a certain point, I realized that the ultimate performance is being a human being. And that's what I do at the farm, the performance of being, B-E-I-N-G. And I continue to do that today. Every day, every night, as we speak.
Yeah.
As I speak. And you
Exactly.
can participate with me or not.
Yeah.
But it's all going on. It's part of the life frame that we're all in.
Yeah.
Because it's the way how we perceive life. And our perception is the framing device.
I think that's the same thing that we used to call life acting.
Well, yeah, and then the Living Theater did their, but yeah, life acting. It's a certain kind of performative way of being in the world, and that's what I do and what I've done.
Yeah, I like that answer. Thanks.
Well, you're welcome. Whatever works.
Whatever works.
Well, I think we've.
Do you want to ask Carl if he had something to say?
He apparently can't be unmuted, so.
Well, Carl, if you go to the bottom of your screen, there's a place where you can tap on the left side, and it's got a microphone. Just keep tapping and see if something works.